The rise and fall of Nakumatt supermarket. Whenever we talk of retailers' death, the first thing that comes into mind is the shutdown of Nakumatt Holdings. At its peak in 2014, Nakumatt was valued at a whopping 35 billion Kenya shillings. In 2017, before the retailer celebrated its 30th anniversary, it started shutting down branches across the country, orchestrating its slow and unceremonious fall from regional glory. At its peak, Nakumatt boasted of 60 well-stocked branches in the East African region. On Tuesday, January 7, 2020, Nakumatt was liquidated, bringing its tragic fall from glory to a quiet end. In the early 2000s, Uchumi and Nakumatt supermarkets dominated Kenya's retail industry as they battled for the leader's tag. At the time, the likes of Ibrahim Supermarket, Tuskys and Naivas were small fish that only competed for the average customer. In its peak days, the brand enjoyed a high level of brand loyalty some companies can only dream about. From the branding to the customer service, the brand lived true to its mantra, "You need it, we've got it," and went on to become a giant in the East Africa retail chain. The supermarket laid claim to over 60 outlets scattered across East African market while employing a whopping 5,500 permanent employees. Real estate developers allocated their best mall spaces to the brand. This greatly helped put Nakumatt's expansion plan in motion, seeing it open branch after branch in prime locations to the satisfaction of their ever-growing clientele. So, what led to the fall of this giant horse? Nakumatt expanded from a mattress shop in Nakuru to a network of more than 60 branches before a cash crunch forced it to shut down its outlets when it was unable to pay suppliers, landlords and other creditors for an outstanding debt of 38 billion Kenya shillings. The salaries owed to Nakumatt employees at the time of closure stood at around 800 million Kenya shillings. The Nakumatt supermarket started way early. In 1976, Mangalao Shah filed for bankruptcy after a lengthy battle with his creditors. Sons Atul and Vimal Shah, who owned Farmat at the time, settled their father's debts. Around the same time, Mangalal's brother Hasmukh Shah was immigrating to the UK and sold Nakuru mattress to his nephews, giving birth to Nakumatt. At its peak in 2014 as a regional retailer, loved and loathed in equal measures, its managing director Atul Shah announced plans once again to list at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. This time around, Mr. Shah also added they were thinking of cross-listing in all regional stock markets. This happened even after the retailer suffered greatly during the unfortunate Westgate Mall terror attack. At 25% stake that they at the time would be offering was estimated at close to 9 billion Kenya shillings. The retailer was then valued at more than 35 billion Kenya shillings. This pronouncement also followed what had been in the news, a search for strategic investors from way back in 2010. The plan Mr. Shah added would materialize in 3 to 4 years. This was to make 2016 or 2017 significant years for the retailer. But in 2017, things had taken a huge turn. The telltale signs of a retail behemoth in distress started showing. A management shakeup that saw Mr. Shah forcefully come out as the face of the company. Previous managers and directors exiting and new ones joining told it all. Then it began shutting down its branches across the country. By 2018, when it was supposed to be celebrating its 31st birthday, things were thick. Suppliers, landlords, employees and lenders were baying for the management blood. It could not pay what it owed to them. What followed next is a story of from gold to ashes as the Nakumatt empire fell. The story of a once admired brand, the region's benchmark in retail industry, turned to be that of debt, pity and auctioneers falling over themselves on which branch to sell. There are many factors cited to having contributed to the death of Kenya's retail giants. These factors include gross mismanagement, poor financial decisions, tax compliance issues and massive losses. The losses were attributed to wayward employees and suppliers who perpetrated theft by taking stocks and major assets belonging to the retailers. In other instances, directors are cited as the major reason for underperformance. Nakumatt Holdings encountered management issues while at the peak of operations in Kenya. The report from the management on the dismal performance of the supermarket caught many by surprise in 2016 when the management indicated that the company was facing financial problems, a factor that contributed to operational meltdown. The situation went from bad to worse as the number of outlets dropped from 60 in February 2017 to 6 in September 2018. The remaining outlets were later sold to Naivas Supermarket at a cost of $4.2 million. At the time of closure, it was reported that Nakumatt was in a debt crisis as it owed its creditors about 38 billion Kenya shillings, a factor that made it very difficult to salvage the situation. Amid the financial crisis in 2018, the company entered voluntary supervision to seek protection from its creditors under Kenya's newly enacted corporate laws. The legislation provides a pathway for distressed firms to avoid complete collapse. In an interview, in a review of its financial statements by an independent auditor, the review indicated that the company had lent over 1 billion Kenya shillings to its directors in interest-free soft loans. At the time of closure, Nakumatt Supermarket directors indicated that intense competition may have played a significant role in the collapse of the retail giant. They indicated that the battle for the limited group of middle-class shoppers witnessed between locally owned and foreign supermarkets had been increasing at an alarming rate, forcing the firms to adopt practices such as price cutting, therefore affecting the profitability by the firms. In the recent past, foreign supermarkets have been opening shops in Nairobi and other regions in Kenya and East Africa. Fear of competition from foreign entrants caused Nakumatt Supermarket to divert billions of shillings into a rapid expansion in a bid to lock them out of strategic locations. To make it hard for them to set up, Nakumatt rushed to snap up key locations that would have been a key target for the international players. But this strategy was a big miscalculation because it underestimated the amount of investment it needed and the financial strain it would put itself into. The plan was to roll out 24 new stores between 2015 and 2017. This would have seen it open an average of 1 outlet every month, and the target was 77 branches by the end of the year. The ambitious plan collapsed midway after new branches ended up locking up billions of shillings that had been diverted from suppliers and other creditors, making it the last straw to push the retailer into financial ruin. The retail chain also had to buy out shares held by wealthy businessman Harun Mwau, who was described as a minority shareholder. The businessman sold a 7.7% minority stake in Nakumatt Supermarkets for an undisclosed amount to pave way for entry of a strategic investor from abroad. Sources say the deal flopped when an audit found out that Nakumatt's books were in pretty bad shape. The retailer then pumped most of the billions it borrowed into the expansion program and diverted part of the money owed to suppliers to buy stock for the new branches. In December 2015, Nakumatt sank 200 million shillings in Busia and Bungoma branches to push its total branch count to 57. In March 2016, it then opened another branch in Kakamega to complete the remodeling of the 3 supermarkets acquired from Miyako Limited at a cost of 260 million shillings. In Tanzania, the firm spent $3 million to open 3 branches in Dar es Salaam. The retailer also needed between 70 million shillings and 80 million shillings to take care of other startup costs which are not recoverable immediately. But once its cost overtook its revenues, the firm started defaulting on its main obligations, among them lenders, landlords, and suppliers, making it impossible to turn itself around. It crashed so fast between December and March 2016. It was a mistake to finance growth from cash flows. Despite the supermarket having one of the best security and inventory systems in the country, it reported higher pilferage percentages than international averages. The retailer noted that food and drinks part of the business constituted half of the revenue for the retailer and was its single largest segment of the business. The second segment was the lifestyle segment, which contributed 27% of its revenue, while the non-food household goods contributed to the remaining part of the revenue. Documents also show that the profits from the firm started taking a downward spiral despite an increase in revenue from as far back as 2013. But the retailer kept hoping that it would be able to reverse the dwindling fortunes before it was too late. Whereas its revenues were growing by about 4 billion shillings per year between 2013 and 2015, its net profit was shrinking about half every year. As this was going on, the retailer was piling up debt by a near similar amount as its growth in revenue. Its total debt grew from 8 billion shillings to 11.5 billion shillings in 2014. It further took up more debt in 2015 to push its total debt by the close of that year to about 14.8 billion shillings. Its debt grew more than 30 billion shillings. Its former chief finance officer left the company shortly before it started branch closures 2 months later, its director of operations left to join Bidco. The retailer had sought 60 days to complete the proposed takeover deal with Tuskys and come up with a new strategy for the settlement of debt. Nakumatt customer service was described by many as the best there is during those glory days. The 30-year-old supermarket chain fell down the trench and got sucked into the mire within approximately 600 shambolic days. Nakumatt's woes began in late 2016 when the management of the retail chain made public its cash flow problems. By this time, shoppers who walked through the doors of most Nakumatt shopping outlets were slapped with rows of empty shelves, silent-faced staff and only a handful of customers. Though fate served up another chance, Tuskys, another retail giant, attempted to salvage the ailing Nakuru-born supermarket, but the deal never quite materialized. Intervention by the Kenyan government later came in when a second petition seeking to have Nakumatt Holdings Limited declared insolvent over $600,000 in unpaid dues was talked up. The government held talks with bank representatives in a move to rescue the supermarket chain that was staring down the liquidation barrel. Well, it's not just Nakumatt who was taking the hit. In December 2017, a section of Nakumatt supermarket employees in Nairobi branches downed their tools to protest delayed salaries of over 6 months, a year which marked the beginning of its woes, struggling with debts. In its place, various local supermarkets have sprung up. International brands have also joined the fray, eating up lunch that Nakumatt Limited prepared but never lived to taste, a ballooning space that today accommodates many players. Nakumatt is not the only big name that has been submerged in financial turmoil. Uchumi, Ukwala and Ibrahim also collapsed under similar circumstances. 10 years ago, 3 supermarkets, Nakumatt, Uchumi and Tuskys, were household names dominating the retail sector. Today, the sector's landscape looks totally different. All of them have been wiped out of the market. Nakumatt and Uchumi specifically were formidable that they seemed too big to fail from their expansive reach and penetration in the market within East Africa. Any supermarket targeting low-income earners is bound to fail because many of these brackets are not shoppers but simply buy daily necessities in small quantities, according to experts, making them more dependent on the neighborhood kiosks who are more able to establish a relationship and access credit purchases. Thanks for watching Kenyan Edge.